Hello and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I'm Daryl Griffiths and this is my weekly 180 where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. At the end, I'll pick my favourite to review in a little more detail in the cubicle. In my SAP techie news this week, CIO.com has an interview with SAP CEO and Executive Board member Christian Klein. Klein hints that the embedding of AI into the migration tools will be a fundamental enabler for customers to move to the cloud. Now, I can only suppose that this is not talking about the technical migration aspects, but the business process migration, utilising enablers such as SAP Signavio Process Insights. The link is in the description down below. An interesting article on ERP Today, which seems to champion an option that I also think is viable. No wonder I'm highlighting it. The article suggests that by using a third-party support provider such as Rimini Street, it could save SAP customers between 50% and 90% of what I assume is the SAP maintenance cost for 15 years. That would take a customer on SAP Business Suite today to 2040. My view on this is that 15 years is probably too long, but is certainly an alternative and in some cases could be used as a means to raise enough cash and build a business case for S/4HANA, or whatever the next product will be called in 2040. From Channelasia, food company CP Foods has selected RISE with SAP along with the SAP products SAP Sustainability Footprint Management, SAP Sustainability Control Tower and SAP Environment for reporting on sustainability data and helping the company see and reach its carbon accountability targets. The article mentions that the impending EU Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism and the US SEC climate risk disclosures are also acting as business drivers, and the link is down below. A second ERP Today article, but this time on Pacific Textiles' choice to go with Rimini Street for support of S/4HANA. The reason this item stood out to me is because this says S/4HANA, not Business Suite. In the video linked in the article, the CEO of Pacific Textiles talks about why they have chosen to move out of SAP maintenance. It's not a clear-cut explanation in my view. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but see what you think and leave a comment down below. Cost pressures will be biting a lot of SAP customers right now, so it's possible that SAP themselves may need to make those incentives bigger or risk losing rafts of the middle market. SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 5 revision 59 maintenance version 13 is released. Could this be the unlucky maintenance version? Some interesting fixes contained in this one: HSR, security, SDA, and a dozen or so for general stability and performance related issues. The link to the specific SAP note, which is 3440885, is down below. Lastly, if you thought RISE with SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud was not possible for some companies due to security or sovereignty requirements, I've said it before, there is a solution for every situation. SAP NS2, the independent US subsidiary of SAP, has announced that it has a provisional authorization from the US Defense Information and Systems Agency, DISA, for hosting SAP S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition in their own Department of Defense FedRAMP Plus Impact Level 4 DoD IL4 Secure Cloud environment. I was today years old when I learned SAP NS2 existed. My favourite item this week is the teeny tiny article on ERP Today that talks about Rimini Street supporting Business Suite for 15 years. Now I have to assume it's talking about Business Suite. It doesn't specifically say, it just says your existing SAP software. Let's look at this idea in a little more detail. To run SAP Business Suite for 15 more years from 2024 takes us to 2039. Currently, this is the end date for SAP S/4HANA, a whole product above. Are they really suggesting a customer can run their SAP business system for 15 years outside of SAP support? I don't think so. I think this article and the second article about Pacific Textiles choosing Rimini Street for support of S/4HANA could be indicating that SAP S/4HANA would be supportable until 2039, for sure. You see, the problem with suggesting Business Suite can be supported until 2039 is that the third-party support aspect is no longer just about the ABAP code, it's about all the peripheral services around the core system which need to integrate. Hardly any company runs just SAP Business Suite on its own with no connectivity to other systems. As an example, SAP Analytics Cloud connectivity to the SAP backend was impacted by the gradual introduction of better web browser security. A long duration such as 15 years will introduce many new security requirements which will need to be solved. Those security requirements are solved more often than not in the kernel sublayers of the SAP technology stack. Incidentally, that is also the layer where the SAP and operating system interact. It's written in C or C++ programming languages and compiled with no external access to the source code. Let's imagine a likely scenario. Your company wants to expose its 15-year-old SAP system to the internet to serve some business requirement. You confront that system with load balancers and firewalls and lots of good security stuff. But what if a security issue is found in a specific piece of functionality that is used? You're going to turn off that functionality or need to write some sort of custom version of it. Immediately, you've got a deviation from normality, which could cost you more in support in the long term. So effectively, you will have a rolling additional maintenance requirement for the little workarounds and fixes and whatever repercussions they cause. That cost impact is not visible up front. A managed service provider may turn around and request a service charge uplift to cover any additional effort to administer the systems with these workarounds in. Are there any concrete examples for my likely scenario? Yes. CVE 2023-33987 was found in 2023 and involves HTTP request smuggling. The vulnerability was found in HTTP/2 protocol, and while not being particularly disastrous, it would allow a remote attacker to bring down an exposed SAP system that contains the vulnerability. The solution is an SAP kernel component patch, which is not fixable by a third-party support provider. The workaround is to disable HTTP2. While the workaround in this specific instance is acceptable, what if that workaround prevented a peripheral system from functioning with SAP? What this highlights is that no matter what you are told, you need to involve your technical and security teams in the support decision so that the true risks can be understood. A 15-year-old SAP system will not be running on a modern and supported operating system. More and more security around the periphery will be needed. What about SAP BTP? You can use a third-party support company for SAP Business Suite support and continue to use SAP BTP right now. The SAP Cloud Connector is needed for allowing SAP BTP to communicate with on-premise systems, and right now it supports SAP ERP and SAP BW connectivity. However, in 15 years, will that still be the case? It might not be the case in 10 years, let alone 15. The SAP Cloud Connector is written and compiled in Java. Third-party providers don't have access to the source code. Let's talk about a more fundamental issue. Even more fundamental than the SAP kernel, than operating systems, than SAP BTP. Let's talk about encryption. We've already got post-quantum algorithms filtering into the encryption standards for internet-based communications. Within the majority of SAP products nowadays, there exists something called the SAP Cryptographic library. It has a number of other names like Common Crypto Lib or SAP Crypto Lib, but essentially this library provides the necessary algorithms to encrypt and decrypt data. This includes providing HTTP services securely over SSL. As standards evolve, vulnerabilities are found and computing power increases, older algorithms become outdated. We saw this cycle in action when in 2017 Google found the first SHA-1 collision. This immediately meant that the security of a huge amount of services was effectively rendered useless. The SHA-1 algorithm was only 20 years old, and we didn't even have A, let alone AI. Now imagine if a similar scenario played out with the invention of a workable quantum computer that could repeatedly crack today's go-to encryption standards. Those companies within SAP maintenance would have more than likely already patched to the latest SAP Cryptographic library and using a supported algorithm. For those on third-party support? Well, who knows? All sorts of workarounds would be needed to the features that verify certificates, that provide secure HTTP, that digitally sign documents, that encrypt data at rest and in transit. It could be a big audit headache. If you plan to go this route, plan wisely and adopt a flexible, multi-layered architecture. As always, reference links are in the description down below. Drop me a comment, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.